Hello, my friends. It is Monday, April 28th, 2025, and this is the Daily Brief. So, my title was that Putin just played a genius move, and the question is, can he execute it? Now, I say it's a genius move. I don't want Putin to be successful, but this was very clever on his part. It'll be interesting to see what Zelensky does to counter it. And no, this was not it, what you're seeing here. This is not his genius move. Kyiv Post carried today. Putin will completely cease fire if no more weapons are delivered to Ukraine and if the Ukrainian armed forces do not use the truce to rearm. Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov said this was 20 hours ago. Of course, Putin will stop as soon as Ukraine has no weapons. No, that's not the genius move. That's not it at all. We'll get to the genius move in just a little bit. 1,160 Russians off the battlefield, 4 tanks, 13 armored fighting vehicles, 31 artillery systems, 105 vehicles, and fuel tanks. That's what's happened day over day. That 1160 number is bringing this to 1219, which is well short of February's 1247. So it's, 1219 is not that terribly high. Here is Ragnar Gudmundsson's dashboard. Combat engagements and casualties are slightly above the 7-day average. Well, 7-day average has been remarkably low, given that they were starting to try to be offensive again, and that was even carried by Sersky, and then it kind of fell apart. And then you had the Easter truce, and that, even with a truce, was still 600 something a day and 900 a day, but it was still very low. Moderate equipment losses, but APVs well above average. Unusually few strikes on both sides, but the strike ratio improves. So that was interesting, the strike ratio. And I showed you this yesterday, the strike ratio on the dashboard. Today, it was 19 times, like 19 strikes for the Russians for every Ukrainian strike. Now, yesterday it was 34, right? That was quite a difference. So, that's where we are. So this dashboard's remarkably helpful for a number of reasons. Go check it out on Twitter or Blue Sky or wherever you can find it. Okay, so explosions reported overnight in occupied Crimea's Chermorsky district, that is over here. And we have Ukrainian Air Force MiG-29 carried out an airstrike using several AASM hammer bombs on a sugar factory. And I thought, a sugar factory? Like, what's the military purpose of a sugar factory? And then I kept reading the sentence, where Russian FPV drones and equipment were reportedly stored. Okay, well, that makes a little bit more sense. Russia claims large-scale drone attack targeted the Bryansk Oblast, home to a factory producing components for air defense systems and Iskander missile complexes. The Bryansk governor said that the attack damaged infrastructure and civilian facilities, resulting in 1 death and 1 injury. Russian defenses also reportedly intercepted over 100 Ukrainian drones targeting Bryansk Oblast. This was the same event. Yeah, over 100 drones. I don't know how many drones actually went. I don't see other information. The Kremenny L plant, one of Russia's major military microelectronic suppliers, produces microchips and components for these missile complexes, S-300, S-400 air defense systems. Okay. Let's turn our attention to the Frontline map. We're still going to get to Putin's genius move in just a little bit. But cross direction, Russian invaders led 42 assaults, which is pretty high. 42 assaults is high given the number here of 1,160. So that's significant. They're still after Pokrovsk. Now, a long shot Ukrainian sniper successfully dropped a Russian T at 2,070 meters. That's 6,791 feet if you're an American. Wow, that's quite a distance. 1, 2, 3, and into the ditch. Now, sometimes vehicles are hit by drones. Most of the time they're hit by drones. But sometimes, the drivers just aren't really driving very well. And then once they crash, then they're hit by drones. So if you're going to skid out and crash, this is a wrong neighborhood, in which case you should be driving. Okay. Sumy region, Russia assault troops hit Ukrainian minefields during an attempted advance. Mining remains a critical asset in modern positional warfare. Both sides are mining. They have to in order to keep the invader away from where they are. And and it's working. You just have to know where it is. 80th Airborne Assault Brigade shares footage of destroying Russian mechanized convoy, including Tiger armored vehicle and 3 BMPs near Oleshnya in the Kursk border area. And we're going to talk about Kursk too, because they're still fighting in Kursk. But the big story here, if you could write one headline for the entire war, it would be this: Ukrainian forces have successfully leveraged superior drone capabilities to defend critical sectors of the front line while also mitigating manpower and material constraints. Drones have been what's kept Ukraine in the war because they just don't have the same numbers of human beings to throw at the other human beings that their side doesn't seem to care how many human beings they throw at you. Okay. Russian assault group and anti-drone capes that were supposed to complicate the detection of infantrymen through the drone cameras. What you're seeing here, this guy's wearing this cape, and it's supposed to keep the drone from being able to see him, but that's not necessarily the case, and so it's going to go badly for him. Operators from the 1st Tank Brigade freed 3 Ukrainian soldiers from captivity using drones. First, they separate the prisoners from the Russians with airdrops, then they move to safe positions while the Russians are destroyed. Here's just a F-16 Fighting Falcon on a combat air patrol over western Ukraine. It's just interesting to see. Now, Zelensky has refuted the claims of full control over Kursk. Putin came out over the weekend talking to Gerasimov, claiming victory in Kursk and thanking him for pushing them out. It only cost them 240 some odd days, but they're still not out. That's the funny thing. Deep State Projects reports 29 kilometers squared under Ukrainian control. I've seen upwards of 40 kilometers squared upwards of Ukrainian control in Kursk, and yet they're declaring victory. Well, the May 9th parade is right around the corner, and that's what Putin's trying to say. See, we've prevailed. We've had victory. Okay, here is Reading Russia. This is Steve Rosenberg of the BBC. Just listen to like 30 seconds of this.
One of the top stories in today's Russian papers is Moscow's claim to have restored full control over Russia's Kursk region after defeating the remaining Ukrainian troops there. President Putin described this as victory, and the word victory appears in several papers this morning. What you won't find anywhere is anyone making the point that if Russia hadn't launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, there would have been no Ukrainian incursion into Kursk region, and Moscow wouldn't have needed to spend 264 days fighting.
All right, 264 days. I stand corrected. I said 240 something. 264 days they were in Kursk, and they're still there. So today's 265. All right. Zelensky says our military continues to operate in the Kursk and Belgorod regions. We maintain our presence in Russia, Pokrovsk, and other directions in Donetsk region. I thank our warriors for resilience. Incredible job. We are all keeping our position strong so that we have every opportunity for proper diplomacy. And so that's half of what's motivating it. But the other part of what's motivating Putin is that he's got a Victory Day parade coming up in just a couple of weeks, and he has to show that he's been victorious. Okay, now, so you remember that where Gerasimov and Putin were talking about that, and congratulations on getting them all out. Okay, here's the genius move by Putin. And again, I say it's a genius move, but it's not that I'm supporting him. I'm just saying it's a very clever move, and we'll see what Zelensky does to counter it. Breaking. According to Russian media, Putin just announced a ceasefire for the 80th anniversary of Victory Day from 0000 on May 7th, 0000 to May 10th. The Russian side will halt all combat actions during these 3 days, urging Ukraine to follow suit. Now, that's genius. Why is it genius? Because if I was Ukrainian SBU, I would be moving heaven and earth right now with FPV drones, swarms of truckloads of FPV drones coming into Russia, all around Moscow with repeaters around the edges of Moscow so that I could, with little FPV drone bombs, just sting the heck out of the Russian Victory Day parade. I mean, or just create mayhem in Russia during this time of the Victory Day parade, because this is really important to Putin. So declaring the ceasefire, if they declare a ceasefire and the Russian guns fall silent and then Ukraine does this, Ukraine's the bad guy, right? So it creates a layer of security and protection for Russia. Now, I don't think he can actually do it. I don't think he can pull it off. He can say that there's a ceasefire, but as soon as one shot goes from the Russian side to the Ukrainian side, it's over, and it won't take very long to violate that. And so he's trying for a PR, for both security and a PR win when it doesn't really happen. But yeah, so it was a very clever move. I don't think he'll be able to do it. And I think that the counter may very well be, well, let's go for May 1st. I mean, if you're really serious about it, let's do the whole month of May. I can see Zelensky saying something along those lines. Okay, now remember this general that was just killed in Moscow. This is Anna from Ukraine saying strikes in Russia's rear, panic and fear among Russian generals. And yeah, so they struck this general with a car bomb. Jay Bowes the other day said, why doesn't Russia start assassinating senior Ukrainian generals with car bombs in Kiev? It could do so in hours, or wipe out Zelensky and his cabinet. He could do so in minutes. Answer, Putin built his reputation on destroying T, not behaving like one. Okay, well, yeah, except this guy actually was what you're claiming that they are. That is, this general was involved in quite a bit of tea, and I don't say that word for YouTube censors just because I get picked up on that sometimes and have problems with YouTube. It was General Moskalik who planned the strikes on Kryvyi Rih, Sumy, Kyiv, Kharkiv, and other Ukrainian cities. He's a typical Russian soldier. He knew exactly that he was killing civilians. So if you're going to call, like, Putin built his reputation on destroying T, not behaving like one. Well, he was behaving like one. That's why he was eliminated. And that's the backstory there. Okay, Ukraine lost a Su-27 fighter on 28 April. Ukrainian search and rescue team successfully recovered the ejected pilot, who's now in stable condition after the incident. Here are just some drones taking out drones. I love watching this kind of thing, and it's wonderful. By the way, I showed you this because I mean, it's the reality. Like, sometimes Ukraine loses some too, and good that the pilot's okay, but that happens. Now, this is Ukraine drones taking on Russian drones, and the operators of the Signum Battalion, 53rd Mechanized Brigade, hunted down Russian drones. The results are 10 enemy supercams destroyed, 2 Orlans destroyed. All right, North Korea has now confirmed, after Russia confirmed, North Korea confirmed the deployment to Russia for the first time. Well, okay, we already knew it was an open secret. Everybody understood that North Koreans were there for how many days. Czech initiative delivers 400,000 more shells to Ukraine by the end of April. So that's ongoing, and that's awesome. Pistorius on U.S. peace plans. Ukraine could have surrendered its territories without Washington's help. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. In that case, Ukraine could have simply capitulated a year ago. He also confirms Germany will keep supporting Ukraine militarily, even if the U.S. pulls out, as clearly outlined in the coalition agreement. Okay. Frontline report, new British truck turns Russian drones into electronic confetti. There are a number of versions of this kind of thing, but this Britain's new microwave weapon disabled 100 Russian drones at once for pennies per shot. So this is the wave of the future. Russian mobilization of children. Unfortunately, this is the wave of the future as well. This is truly horrifying video. Russia's training Ukrainian children in occupied territories to kill their own friends, neighbors, and loved ones. 5 years, they'll be ready to liberate the rest of Ukraine, and then Poland, the Baltics, and eventually all of Europe. This isn't just a disturbing video. It's a warning about the future. Unless we stop Russia now, this is exactly how Nazi Germany rose to power in the 1930s as well. So they're, getting these high schoolers prepared as would-be Russian soldiers. Okay. Now, this woman, her name is Lydia. Lydia lost two sons. One was a soldier in Donbass, the other died in the occupation. She says, I'll take a Kalashnikov. I can shoot. Kherson will never be Russian. I'm not afraid. Kherson is Ukraine. Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia regions are Ukraine. Crimea is Ukraine. Oh, that's one tough grandmother. Okay, now I want to turn a page here and ask you for your help. This is Vlad Vexler, and he put this out on X yesterday, urgently seeking help from PWME or PWLC. So he's got some medical conditions, and those medical conditions have been exacerbated by long COVID. And so he was in the hospital here and showed this on April 26. A heroic international effort got me moved by ambulance from Homerton NHS to a private hospital. A 45-minute ambulance trip on oxygen triggered microvascular episode, but I made it. So Vlad, if you don't know who Vlad Vexler is, he's been somebody who's been a huge voice for Ukraine. He's got his own channel, and I'm sure you've probably stumbled over some of his videos and as he's explaining what's going on as well. So he's asking, who tests and treats for microclots in the UK outside of research studies? It's been suggested that I have microclots in my lungs and that this could have contributed or caused my life-threatening saturation event. Any thoughts on this? Thank you. Situation desperate. So I know that 30,000 or so of you are going to watch this. Most of you aren't doctors, but a few of you are doctors or know doctors or connect to doctors or whatever. So anything that you can do, you can connect to him. If you contact me, I will forward stuff onto Vlad. But this is important. And again, Vlad has been a strong voice for Ukraine, so I want to help him. Okay. Last little bit, somebody replying to Darth Putin says, despite all your efforts, the real Putin is still very much alive and kicking. Please try harder. Or you can always blame everything on Trump again. Either way, good luck, man. Okay. And Darth Putin's reply is, such is my roaring success. I live openly and without fear of assassination thanks to my many victories in this war. Yeah, I mean, there's that. There's a reason that he's got the nickname of Bunker Grandpa. All right. Thank you, my friends. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.